Hello, friends, and welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey. Got a whole bunch of Cowboys rumors to dive into, several on the NFL draft as well. We will begin with Dak Prescott. Is he going to hold out? Now, as we'll dive into, it's not really a holdout, but I think that's the most all-encompassing term here. We'll give this one 3 stars for the time being because the reports are from credible sources out there that Dak doesn't plan to show up to the offseason program that is set to begin on April 20th. Now, again, this is voluntary. Dak's not under contract, so technically speaking, it's not a holdout, but I think you guys know what we mean when we use the word holdout, so that's the word we're going to end up using here. Now, he does not reportedly plan to show up without a new contract, which is, again, within his rights. If there is some good news, we'll get into that as well, but the offseason has changed. And in reality, the Cowboys kind of already dodged this potential bullet back on April 6th, which was when the voluntary offseason program was supposed to begin for teams with new coaches. That's been pushed back to April 20th. That is when that will begin for the Dallas Cowboys. It'll end for all teams around May 15th. Then the NFL will take a look at, okay, what's going on now? Can we get the facilities back up and running? If they can't, it might be a virtual mini camp in June. And then the key major deadline here for the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott, July 15th. That is the deadline for a new deal for franchise tag players. Now, of course, this virtual off-season program, well, it's going to be very different, and it's really not that essential that Dak is there. Although, of course, you do want your quarterback showing up because he's the leader of your team. And in general, I don't like it when the players don't show up for the, again, voluntary in quotes, because we know it's kind of not, types of these off-season programs. So that's key for the Cowboys. Now, I want to emphasize this part again. Technically speaking, this is not a holdout. Dak has not yet signed his franchise tag tender, and the program is voluntary, so he doesn't have to be there. He also already has the playbook, and as we've seen on social media, thanks, Des Bryant, he's already been working out on his own. So in the long run, this isn't nearly as impactful in a negative sense as it is skipping training camp, for example. But this is still significant. I gave it the 3 stars because that does seem pretty likely. Although, of course, this can all just go away if the Cowboys were to extend and pay Dak Prescott, because they've had plenty of time to do that, and I think I speak for many of you out there. It's frustrating that the Cowboys haven't yet gone about that route. It's time for the Cowboys to pay Dak Prescott. The two sides are not that far apart in a potential negotiation, in a potential deal. So just get it done so that your star quarterback can show up to all of the voluntary types of programs that are going on right now. The issue right now, I do believe, and I think this is mostly agreed to, it's the years side of it. It's 4 years versus 5. Dak wanted a shorter-term deal. The Cowboys want a longer-term deal. Now they're off by a year. But as I've mentioned before, the length and the money, they are intertwined. The longer you go on a deal, the more money the player ends up getting. So somebody has to budge here. Maybe it's the Cowboys. Maybe it's Dak Prescott. But the sooner this deal gets done, the better it is for all parties involved. I've made this very clear on the show before. I don't like holdouts. I think they negatively impact the player, and they obviously negatively impact the team as well. So with that in mind, how upset would you be if Dak does choose to skip the off-season program? Rate this for me on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you don't care at all. 10 being you are freaking out and you are livid with Dak Prescott. I'll make that the pinned comment on this video, so when the YouTube ad break hits, scroll on down and cast your votes right there. All right, time to dive into the draft side of it, and I am not going to like this one. Is Kenneth Murray the ideal pick for the Dallas Cowboys? Absolutely not. This is horrible. This is fake news through and through, and it comes from NFL.com. They published their ideal draft, first 2 rounds for all 32 NFL teams, and they had Kenneth Murray as the ideal Cowboys pick at 17. No, absolutely not. Now, I am, at this point, bordering on terrified of the Dallas Cowboys taking Kenneth Murray with the number 17 overall pick, because there is a chance for them, at least, he's the best defensive player left on the board. I do not agree with that. And most importantly, Murray doesn't fill a need for this organization. And even in that NFL.com piece, they didn't mention the injuries for Leighton Vander Esch as the reason why. They just wanted to replace Sean Lee. Guys, it is 2020. you use mostly 2 linebackers. I actually don't mind Kenneth Murray, the player. I think there's certainly some upside there. But if the Cowboys take Kenneth Murray in round 1, which I do fear is a real possibility, I will be livid. It doesn't make sense for this organization to do that unless, A, they have zero faith long-term in one of Jalen Smith or Leighton Vander Esch. Well, as of right now, they just paid Jalen, and frankly, Murray kind of plays like Jalen Smith, I think. And then Leighton Vander Esch's neck's a concern. But if you are worried about Leighton Vander Esch's neck, what if it's okay long-term? Well, now you just wasted your first-round pick. So if the Cowboys go Murray in round 1, I will not be happy. That means either A, they botched the Jalen Smith extension. I think that's too soon to declare. They've lost faith in Leighton Vander Esch's long-term neck and his health issues. That's a big-time concern. And now they're going to spend a first-round pick on another off-ball linebacker, which isn't the most impactful position and isn't the Cowboys' biggest need. I need a number 1 corner. I need a slot receiver. I need long-term and depth right now at defensive tackle. I need safety help long-term and probably right now as well. I need an edge rusher. You can make linebacker the 7th need if you want, but if everything goes to plan, Sean Lee stays healthy, Vander Esch is good to go, and Jalen Smith bounces back, which I think is the plan right now, then you just wasted your first-round pick. I do not want Kenneth Murray on the Cowboys. Not in round 1. I think it's a bad idea. So let me know what you guys think. Grade the draft pick. A, B, C, D, or F. The hypothetical one, of course, here of Kenneth Murray. I hate it. I'm not going to give it any higher than a D. I think it would be a terrible, terrible idea for the Cowboys. Go look on day 3 for a linebacker like smart teams do instead. Now we're going to move on to K'Lavon Chaisson, who isn't a linebacker, but he's a pass rushing guy, way better in that role than Kenneth Murray is. Are the Cowboys high on him? I'm giving this one 4 stars. I think, and part of why I'm concerned about the Cowboys going with a Kenneth Murray, or a guy we'll get to in a second here, is I think the Cowboys ideally would get C.J. Henderson or K'Lavon Chaisson in round 1 at number 17 overall. I have a tough time seeing Henderson being there even at 16 potentially. Chaisson, I think, is a little bit more possible. He's my second best edge rusher in a pretty down draft class. But there is a real possibility that Henderson and Chaisson are both off the board, and that jeopardizes the Cowboys' draft plans. If he's there at 17, I think the Cowboys would make him that pick. It does depend, on what trade offers you get and what other potential interest is shown in terms of other players left on the board. But I think Chaisson would be the pick, and it does make some sense. You're still looking for impact help at defensive end at the edge rusher spot. Tyrone Crawford, he's coming off injury, has 1 year left on his deal. I know you've got Randy Gregory and a couple other guys in there like Alden Smith too. But here's the thing. You don't know if those guys are going to be on the field next year or what role they'll play. And all those guys have 1 year left on their deal. So you're thin long term. So I would be okay with K'Lavon Chaisson as the pick at number 17 overall. And I like it a whole lot more than I would Kenneth Murray. Now, we're going to keep you guys covered on everything around the Cowboys and the NFL draft. So if you want the single best NFL draft coverage for the Dallas Cowboys, hit that big red button and subscribe today. Move on now to Chaisson's teammate, Grant Delpit. What about him and the Dallas Cowboys? I'll give this one 2 stars. I do think it makes some sense here for the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys had a pre-draft meeting with Delpit. That's not a huge surprise. That one, I think, was very much expected to have happen. He did not play as well in 2019 as he did back in 2018. And that's part because his tackling was horrible. There's no way around it. Grant Delpit took issue with that at the NFL Combine. The numbers don't lie. He missed about 25% of his tackles this past year. That is brutal. That is not acceptable. Now, when you look ahead to where the Cowboys sit right now in terms of potential free agents and their long-term outlook at the safety spot, you got 4 guys right now. Xavier Woods, Clinton Dix, in all likelihood, end up playing the majority of your snaps if you don't draft somebody early at safety. Well, guess what? They're both free agents after this year ends, which means you need to at least keep one of those guys. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you need long-term safety help. Now, Delpit's 2018 was awesome. It was so wildly impactful that we were able to overlook the still existing tackle concerns. But this past year, everything dropped off for Delpit. He didn't tackle as well, wasn't making as many plays. Injuries were a factor in that, but that brings up injury concerns now for Delpit. I don't think he ends up being the pick at number 17. If they trade down or trade up in round 2, I think Delpit could be an option. I think the Cowboys actually might prefer Xavier McKinney a little bit. So let me know what you guys think. Pick a safety. Deep for Delpit or M for McKinney, Alabama or LSU. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. All right, next up, Trevon Diggs. How about him and the Dallas Cowboys? Look, this is from Dane Brugler. His latest 7-round mock draft had the Cowboys taking Diggs at 17. I think he is another realistic option if the top-end guys, the Cowboys like Chaisson and Henderson, are not on the board. I wouldn't love this pick, but I wouldn't hate it either. I think it is very much, though, in the realm of possibility. The Cowboys appear to like him. I think, again, he could be an option at 17 or still a trade-down option because I'm not sure how the rest of the NFL feels about him. He does make sense, not over Henderson or over Chaisson, but if those two guys are off the board for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, my concerns with Diggs are less about his production this past year at Alabama. It was pretty good. Or his size, or his length, or his ball skills. Those all check out. I've got speed concerns. I don't think he has great makeup speed, and that's a big deal in the NFL. That's why I've got a round 2 grade on him. But he'll probably end up still ranking inside my top 40 fairly easily. And he would fill a big-time need for the Cowboys. He could potentially be a long-term number 1 corner for you. And if you do run more zone, I think that fits pretty well for Diggs, who likes to play physical and can play some press coverage, although some of the reps are, well, they're a little rough because he was a former receiver converted to cornerback. So Diggs is an option, I believe, if the top targets are gone at number 17. That is the C.J. Hendersons, the Caleb Chaisson, maybe even Javon Kinlaw, some of the receivers as well. If that happens, let me know who you want at number 17 overall. There are a bunch of different directions you could go with that, which is why I think trading down, even for Diggs, makes a whole bunch of sense for the Dallas Cowboys. I got a deal alert for you guys from our friends over at Fanatics, chatsports.com/Cowboys Nike. That is chatsports.com/Cowboys Nike. You can save 25% off Cowboys Nike jerseys. That's Dak, Zeke, Amari, all kinds of ones. And on top of that, you get free shipping if you use promo code 39SHIP. That's chatsports.com/Cowboys Nike. And do not worry, I'll make your life easier. I'll put that link in the comments and the description of this video. All right, next up here, how about trading it down for Cesar Ruiz? I saw this report. A lot of you have asked me about it. I think it is possible, but I don't think it's all that likely, so I'm going to give it just the 1 star here. It is a possible path. It comes to us from Peter King, who says he spoke to a different NFL executive who says the Cowboys are high on Ruiz. I don't put a ton of stock in, hey, other teams think team is going to do this. And that's guesswork. I don't think they're getting secret inside information. It also kind of feels almost too much like the Travis Frederick move, right? You trade down, you take the center in round 1, and hopefully ends up being a long-term starter for you. My issues here is that I think the Cowboys internally feel pretty good about being able to get 2 starters out of the trio of Joe Looney, Connor Williams, or Connor McGovern. I don't think the Cowboys are already out on Williams or out on McGovern. And if that's the case, do you want to spend another premium pick on offensive line? Now, the Cowboys have invested at that spot, so there is some sense behind it. I just have a difficult time seeing the Cowboys, who are fully aware of their desperate need on the defensive line, or on defense in general, going, yeah, let's take the offensive lineman here and keep adding more and more options at that position. So that is a bit of a potential red flag and potential issue for me when it comes to the Cowboys trading down for Ruiz. Although I will make note, I do like the idea of the Cowboys trading down in general. I think that makes some sense. The issue is there are some teams in the back end of round 1 that could use an offensive lineman. And, of course, you have to figure out how you trade down, which team wants to move up. That's a lot easier said than done. Now, some teams that I think could target Ruiz at that back end part of round 1. The Miami Dolphins make sense. The Seahawks, the Ravens, although I don't think Ruiz is quite the fit that they want, but they do have some interior offensive line needs. The Titans and 49ers could all have interest. I think Ruiz might be higher regarded by the NFL than that reporter seemed to think. So one potential trade that could make sense. And depending on which trade value chart, this is either too much or not enough that the Cowboys got back. The older version says it's not enough. The newer version says it's maybe a bit too much. It's not that different than the Travis Frederick trade. The fourth round pick, I think, is negotiable. If there's a lot of interest, then maybe you get the fourth. If not, maybe you don't. I picked the Saints because they're one spot ahead of the Vikings, who already have 2 first-round picks, so they didn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's 2 spots ahead of the Dolphins, who could take an offensive lineman. So you trade on any further, in theory, I don't think you end up getting Ruiz in round 1. So what do you guys think? Should the Cowboys trade down and take Ruiz in the first round and plug him in at center? Why for yes and for no? Again, if you trade down, I don't hate it, but I don't like the idea of going center in round 1. I would rather try to gamble with Connor McGovern or Joe Looney this year and then focus defense heavy and, of course, slot receiver in the 2020 NFL Draft. All right, this one will be quick, I promise. Going running back early. No, this is not the plan. No, fake news. Don't read anything into this. I have the Cowboys themselves to blame for this one, actually, because the Cowboys have posted videos of themselves interviewing running backs. DeAndre Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's weird, right? Doesn't make any sense? Yeah, I would not read anything into this. Now, both are potential top 50 picks, but it doesn't make a lick of sense for the Cowboys, who already paid Zeke, and oh, by the way, drafted Tony Pollard last year. He played pretty darn well, to go with another running back. Now, I actually like the players, Edwards-Helaire and DeAndre Swift. I don't think the Cowboys brought the same level of offensive contingent to the combine that they did as they did defensively. So I think this is probably just more some due diligence. They're searching around, double checking, maybe for potentially several years down the road, getting some scouting reports, getting some information they don't have. They're just doing their due diligence. I do not believe that they are actively considering going running back on the first days of draft, because it doesn't make any sense. Even hypothetically, if you wanted to move Tony Pollard to the slot receiver, which I don't think they're going to do, they'll probably give him some slot reps this year, you wouldn't spend a top 50, top 75 pick on a back like Edwards-Helaire or DeAndre Swift. So I know they met with them, but folks, I'm not going to read anything into it. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.